Do you ever feel like you're sort of stuck in a loop, full of these really good intentions that just, well, they fizzle out? When you talk about wanting to get healthier or learn something new, maybe finally tackle that big project, but actually making those changes stick, it feels like such an uphill battle sometimes. It's almost like some people seem to effortlessly build these really productive habits, while for others, for us, it's just this constant struggle to make any real progress.
Yeah, it's a really familiar feeling, isn't it? That kind of gap between what we intend to do and what we actually end up doing. And that's precisely why we're diving deep today. We're going to unpack the science of habits, pulling insights from a really powerful source that reveals how tiny, almost imperceptible shifts can lead to absolutely remarkable results. It's really about understanding the hidden forces that are, at play.
Okay, let's unpack this then, because we often chase these big dramatic overhauls, right? But what if the secret to monumental change actually lies in something so tiny it's almost invisible? Our guide today is an author whose own incredible journey, from a severe injury to becoming an elite athlete, it wasn't about these huge leaps, but about precisely these small, consistent efforts. Let's imagine this. The final day of his sophomore year of high school, he gets hit square in the face with a baseball bat. The bat, crushes his nose, causes multiple skull fractures, 2 shattered eye sockets. He actually slipped into a coma.
It was a truly devastating injury, and it happened in the very same hospital building where his sister had actually battled leukemia years earlier. And after literal months of intense rehab, his big dream was just to get back on the baseball field, especially, with his father having played for the St. Louis Cardinals. But his return wasn't exactly smooth sailing. He was cut from the varsity team as a junior, which must have been, a truly humiliating moment for someone who'd played since they were 4 years old.
Yeah, absolute crushing. Yet from that really low point, he completely transformed. By the time he graduated from Denison University, he wasn't just back on the field. He was selected as the top male athlete there, named to the ESPN Academic All-America team. Listed in 8 different school record categories for baseball. He even got the university's highest academic honor. And that rebound, that fulfillment of his potential, was fueled entirely by what he calls small habits.
And that's basically our mission today. To extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and some surprising facts about habit formation from his work, we really want to offer you a shortcut to being well-informed on this crucial topic, providing practical insights you can apply, right away to reshape your own life, moving from just intending to do something to actually consistently doing it.
Okay, so let's start right there at the foundation. This counterintuitive idea that these tiny shifts can somehow lead to massive outcomes. The author introduces this concept of atomic changes, right? Defining them as the single sort of irreducible unit of a larger system. When you hear atomic, it really hits home how truly tiny that is.
Absolutely. And the power of these tiny improvements is, it's perfectly illustrated by what British cycling achieved under their performance director, Dave Brailsford. For nearly a century, British professional cycling had been, frankly, a bit of a joke. They'd won just 1 Olympic gold medal since 1908. And in 110 years, no British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France. It was so bad, apparently, that a top European bike manufacturer actually refused to sell them bikes. They were afraid it would hurt their brand.
Wow, that's astonishing. So how on earth did Brailsford manage such a dramatic reversal?
Well, he introduced this philosophy he called the aggregation of marginal gains. The idea was incredibly simple, really. Just find tiny 1% improvements in absolutely everything they did. Everything from, redesigning the bike seats to be more ergonomic, to experimenting with different massage gels for muscle recovery, even down to the specific pillow riders use for sleep. They optimized every single tiny area, and the cumulative result, just unprecedented success. 5 Olympic gold medals in 2008, 7 in 2012, and multiple Tour de France wins, all from countless 1% improvements just adding up.
That's incredible. How a concept so simple, just 1% better, can yield such monumental results. It kind of makes you wonder, right? If this works for elite athletes, what seemingly tiny aspects of our daily lives are we overlooking? Things that could unlock similar breakthroughs for our own goals. And the math behind this, the compounding effect, it's truly surprising. If you get just 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better. But, and this is the scary part, if you get 1% worse each day for a year, you decline almost down to 0. It really highlights how those small choices accumulate into something much, much bigger.
And this leads us to something really critical and maybe a bit counterintuitive. What you're doing right now might not show up on your scoreboard today, but your direction, your trajectory, That's far more telling than your current results. Consider a millionaire who spends more than they earn each month. Their current result looks great millionaire status, but their trajectory is actually downward. Conversely, someone who's broke but manages to save just a little bit every month, they're on a positive trajectory towards financial freedom, even if their current results aren't impressive yet.
That's such an important distinction. Because, yeah, we do get fixated on those immediate numbers, don't we? So if I'm understanding this right, my net worth today isn't just about how much money I have. It's more like a direct reflection of my financial habits over time. Is that it? And my weight is kind of like a lagging measure of my eating habits, and my knowledge is a lagging measure of my learning habits. It's almost like you literally just get what you repeatedly do.
Exactly. It's all about that consistent action. And often, when we don't see immediate results, we get discouraged. We give up. This is what the author calls the plateau of latent potential, or sometimes the valley of disappointment.
Oh, that plateau of latent potential that resonates so deeply. Because it's exactly where most of us give up, isn't it? It's like, imagine you have an ice cube in a room that's 25 degrees. Slowly, the temperature rises.
Yeah.
26, 27, 30, 31. Still nothing. No visible change. But then, bang, at 32 degrees, it melts. All the real action, all that work was happening before you saw the breakthrough.
Precisely. Your efforts aren't wasted. They're just being stored, accumulating beneath the surface. People often quit good habits because they don't see tangible results quickly enough. And what looks like an overnight success to the outside world, it's almost always the product of a long period of unseen prior work. It's kind of like the human equivalent of geological pressure building up over time before an earthquake finally hits.
Okay, so if results are just these lagging measures and progress isn't always this nice, neat, linear thing, what should we focus on instead? The author makes this really compelling argument for, well, forgetting about specific goals and focusing on systems instead. Which feels weird because we often fall into the trap of setting these big...
Exactly, and a systems-first mentality provides the antidote to that. When you fall in love with the process, rather than just the product, you don't have to wait to give yourself permission to be happy. You can actually be satisfied anytime your system is running, regardless of the immediate outcome. It's much more about enjoying the journey itself.
Which brings us to a really fascinating, and honestly for me, a deeply insightful concept, identity-based habits. Okay, so there are 3 levels of change. Outcome, process, and identity. Most of us, myself included, we focus on outcomes, I want to lose weight, or processes, I will go to the gym. But the author says the most effective way to change your habits is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become.
Yeah.
That sounds like a fundamental shift.
It really is, because every action you take is literally like casting a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Think about it. If you're proud of how your hair looks, you'll naturally develop habits to care for it, right? If you're proud of your biceps, you'll make sure you never skip an upper body workout. When your pride gets involved, when a habit becomes intertwined with your sense of self, your identity, you'll fight tooth and nail to maintain those habits. So true behavior change is, at its core, it's identity change.
Wow. That's a huge shift in perspective. So, okay, how does our brain even decide what becomes a habit and what doesn't? What's actually happening under the hood?
Well, think of your conscious mind like a single-lane highway can only really handle one car, one problem at a time. It's the bottleneck of the brain. So your brain is constantly trying to put things on autopilot, Offload tasks to the non-conscious mind just to save mental energy and free up capacity. And that's exactly what a habit does. It reduces that cognitive load and frees up your mental capacity for more complex stuff.
Right. I can totally see how that offloading saves so much mental bandwidth. It explains why habits feel so effortless, almost automatic, once they're established. And the author breaks down this whole process into 4 fundamental steps, forming what he calls the habit loop.
Yes, the 4 simple steps are cue, craving, response, and reward. First, the cue. This is basically the trigger that initiates a behavior. It's a little piece of information that predicts a reward down the line. Our prehistoric ancestors noticed cues for things like food or water. Today, we look for cues that predict anything from money and status to just a sense of personal satisfaction. Your mind is continuously scanning your environment for these cues, often completely without you even realizing it.
And what's wild is that you don't even need to be consciously aware of a cue for a habit to actually begin.
Yeah.
Like suddenly realizing you're hungry, even if you haven't seen or smelled food, your brain's just quietly processing things in the background.
Exactly. So after the cue comes the craving. This is the motivational force, that desire for a change in your internal state. It's the feeling that actually motivates you to act. And what's fascinating here is about dopamine, often called the feel-good chemical. It isn't just released when you experience pleasure, but crucially, when you're anticipating a reward. Your brain actually has far more neural circuitry allocated for wanting rewards than for actually liking them. It's really the
Correct.
chase, the anticipation that hooks us.
So it's that anticipation, the promise of satisfaction, that truly gets us moving.
Yeah.
Okay, then comes the response. This is the actual habit you perform, which could be a thought or an action, and depends on like how motivated you are, how much friction or difficulty is involved in doing it, and your actual ability. You can't dunk a basketball if you can't jump high enough, no matter how strong the craving is.
Right. And finally, the reward. This is the end goal of every single habit. Rewards serve two really crucial purposes. First, they satisfy the craving that started it all. And second, they teach the brain which actions are worth remembering and repeating in the future. Food provides energy, sure, but it also satisfies that immediate craving to eat, reinforcing the entire loop for next time.
Okay, so together, these 4 steps, cue, craving, response, reward, they form this neurological feedback loop that allows us to create automatic habits. It's like this endless cycle just running constantly in the background, shaping our lives, even when they're not consciously aware of it.
And understanding this loop, that's really the first step to applying the author's 4 laws of behavior change, which basically tell us how to build new habits and break bad ones.
Let's jump into that. The first law, make it obvious. Now, this sounds incredibly simple, right? But as habits become really deeply rooted, their cues become almost invisible. Think about the remote control just sitting there by the couch or your phone always in your pocket. These cues are so common, they just fade into the background noise of life. It's kind of like what Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Oof.
Exactly. So the very first step is just awareness. The author suggests creating something called a habit scorecard, literally writing down all your current habits, the good ones and the bad ones. Just the act of listing them out makes them visible, brings them into conscious awareness.
And a really clever awareness strategy he mentions is pointing and calling, like the Japanese railway system uses, where train operators actually verbally call out actions. Signal is green, speedometer at 60. Apparently, this dramatically increases awareness and reduces errors. I've even started trying to apply to my own bad habits, like actually saying out loud, I'm about to open this snack bag, but I don't actually need it. Eating it will make me feel sluggish later. Saying it aloud somehow makes the consequences feel more real,
That's a great application. So beyond awareness, we need strategies for action. One powerful one is using implementation intentions. Basically, you use the formula, I will behavior at time and location. For example, I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. Just writing this down, being that specific, studies show it can significantly increase your likelihood of following through. And things like fresh starts, first day of the week, first of the month, they help too because hope and motivation tend to be higher then.
Okay, that makes sense. Then there's habit stacking. The formula here is, after current habit, I wrote new habit. So maybe after I pour my morning coffee, I will say one thing I'm grateful for that happened yesterday. The key, I guess, is to pick the right existing cue, something you already do reliably, and make sure it matches the frequency you want for the new habit.
Precisely. And of course, a huge one is environment design. Our environment profoundly shapes our behavior, often way more than we realize or like to admit. So make good habits more obvious. Put your medication right by the bathroom faucet. Keep your guitar in the living room instead of hidden in the closet. Pre-fill water bottles and place them around the house or office. You really need to become the architect of your life, making the desired actions the most visible and easily accessible ones. Remember that classic example of the fly sticker in the urinals at Schiphol Airport? Just that tiny visual cue reduced cleaning costs by 8% just by improving people's aim. It shows the subtle power of these environmental cues.
It's amazing how a tiny visual nudge can have such a big impact. And the author really emphasizes that the context is the cue. Habits become deeply associated with the entire environment they happen in. Think about that insomniac study where people were told to only get into bed when they were actually tired and to get up if they couldn't sleep within, say, 15 minutes. Over time, their brains learned to associate the bed only with sleeping, which actually made it easier for them to fall asleep quickly when they got in.
And this also means the habits are often easier to change if you're in a new environment. If you really want to change your habits, sometimes just going to a different coffee shop or working in a different part of your room, or even going to a new grocery store where you don't automatically know where all the unhealthy stuff is shelved, that can help break old triggers. The mantra he suggests is one space, one use. So if your couch is primarily for relaxing and watching TV, try to avoid mixing it with doing intense work emails there. Because when you mix context for different habits, the easier, more established habit usually wins out.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's move to the second law, make it attractive. This law really seems to debunk the whole idea that disciplined people just have more willpower than the rest of us.
It absolutely does. I mean, take that Vietnam War heroin study. While about 20% of U.S. soldiers there reported being addicted to heroin, when they returned home, a staggering 90% of them did not re-addict. Now, compare that to heroin users who get addicted at home, go to rehab, and then very often re-addict when they return to their old neighborhood, their old cues. This strongly indicates that so-called disciplined people are often just better at structuring their lives to avoid temptation, rather than relying on sheer willpower alone. He tells the story of Patty Alwell, who quit smoking years ago but only craved a cigarette again when she was exposed to the specific cue of riding a horse again, something she used to do while smoking. The takeaway is pretty clear. The most practical way to resist temptation is often to reduce your exposure to the cue that triggers it.
That's a really powerful insight. And this is where these supernormal stimuli come into play, right? Our modern world is just full of these exaggerated features that are basically designed to hijack our desire circuits. Things like the bliss point in processed foods, that constant stream of social media likes, notifications, advertising that uses perfect lighting and heavily photoshopped images. These are all hyper attractive to our primal instincts, way beyond anything our ancestors would have encountered.
Exactly. And remember our earlier chat about dopamine? It's released not just when you experience pleasure, but crucially, when you're anticipating a reward. Your brain literally has far more neural circuitry dedicated to wanting rewards than it does for actually liking them. That anticipation, that craving, that's what makes things attractive and keeps us coming back.
Okay, so how do we harness this powerful force of anticipation for good habits? One strategy is temptation bundling, where you pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. The author mentions Ronan Byrne, an electrical engineering student in Ireland who famously hacked his stationary bike. He connected to his laptop running Netflix, so Netflix would only play if he was cycling at a certain speed. Genius. So the formula is basically, after habit I need, I will have it I want. Like, after I get back from my lunch break and call 3 potential clients, then I will watch 15 minutes of sports highlights.
Yeah, it's a clever trick. And another incredibly powerful force making things attractive is the seductive pull of social norms. Humans are inherently herd animals. We have this deep evolutionary desire to fit in and belong. So we unconsciously imitate the habits of 3 main groups. The close, our family and friends. The many, our tribe, like checking online reviews or following popular trends. And the powerful, successful people or those with high status whom we admire. Cultural norms often guide our behavior much more strongly than our individual desires. He mentions a study where if a whole group of chimpanzees uses a less effective nut-cracking strategy, new members will actually avoid the superior method just to blend in with the group.
Wow. So if you want to change a habit, it's vastly easier if your desired behavior is already the normal behavior within your social group. Or maybe if you can find or join a group where that behavior is the norm. And finally, on attractiveness, the author notes how Alan Carr's famous book helps smokers quit by systematically reframing all the cues associated with smoking. So instead of thinking smoking relieves stress, the book reframes it as smoking actually destroys your nerves and causes stress. It really shows how habits are built on these associations and predictions we make. If you change the prediction, you can change the habit.
Moving on, we have the third law. Make it easy. And this highlights a really crucial difference between what the author calls motion and action. Motion is things like planning, strategizing, learning, like brainstorming ideas for a book or researching the best workout plan. Action is actually doing the thing that delivers an outcome, like writing the first sentence or doing the first push-up. Motion makes you feel like you're getting things done, but often it's just a sophisticated form of procrastination. To truly master a habit, you need to start with repetition, not perfection. Action is key.
That's such a brilliant distinction. I know I've definitely fallen into that motion trap myself, convinced I was being super productive. And it's all rooted in this fundamental principle, the law of least effort. Humans, like water flowing downhill, naturally gravitate towards the option that requires the least amount of work or energy. It's apparently why agriculture spread much more easily along east-west axis across the globe, because the climates were similar, requiring less effort to adapt crops compared to north-south axis with varying climates. And think about it, doing 1 push-up per day requires almost 0 energy to start, compared to trying to do 100, which feels exhausting before you even begin.
Exactly. So this means reducing friction in your environment becomes absolutely paramount for making habits easy. Japanese companies famously obsessed over reducing friction in their manufacturing processes, achieving huge gains through addition by subtraction, just eliminating wasted effort. Similarly, many habit-forming products and services today succeed because they remove tiny bits of friction from your life. Think meal delivery services, dating apps, ride-sharing services. They just make the desired action easier. Even voice-activated speakers simply make the act of playing music slightly easier than pulling out your phone, finding the app, and scrolling.
And a fantastic way to make things easier ahead of time is by priming the environment. The author mentions Oswald Knuckles, who had this strategy of resetting the room. So after watching TV, he put the remote back on its stand, arranged the pillows neatly, and folded the blanket. It wasn't just about cleaning up, it was about preparing the environment to make the next action easier. This resonated so much with me. Thinking ahead to make the next good choice the path of least resistance. Like laying out your workout clothes the night before, or chopping up vegetables on the weekend for a quick weekday meals. You want to design your life so the actions that matter most are also the easiest ones to do.
Another critical insight here is recognizing what the author calls decisive moments. These are the small choices at the little forks in the road throughout your day. Choosing between ordering takeout or cooking at home, hitting the snooze button or getting right up, doing your homework or firing up the video games. These little choices might seem insignificant on their own, but they stack up and have this really outsized impact on your trajectory over time. Habits are often the entry point, not the end point. They set the stage for much bigger things down the road.
And this leads perfectly into the 2-minute rule, which I love.
Very good.
The rule is, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Nearly any habit can be scaled down to a 2-minute version. Read 1 page instead of read a chapter, do 1 push-up instead of do a workout, meditate for 1 minute instead of 20. It's basically a ritual designed to make the beginning of a larger routine completely mindless and easy. It's deceptively simple, but incredibly effective because, as the author puts it, it's better to do less than you hoped than to do nothing at all. Just showing up is key.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the fourth and final law: make it satisfying. The cardinal rule of behavior change, according to the author, is this: what is immediately rewarded is repeated, what is immediately punished is avoided. End quote. This is so crucial because good habits often have immediate costs. They might be difficult or unenjoyable in the present, but their rewards are delayed. Think exercise or saving money. Bad habits are usually the reverse. They offer immediate rewards, but their costs are delayed. Think smoking or eating junk food. Our brains evolved in an environment that prioritized immediate gratification for survival, which is why sticking with good habits can be such a challenge for us modern humans.
Okay, so the trick then is to find ways to add some kind of immediate pleasure or satisfaction to good habits, to sort of bypass that ancient evolutionary bias. He shares this great example from Karachi, Pakistan, where a public health worker named Stephen Luby was trying to improve hand-washing habits, which were crucial for reducing disease, but really inconsistent. They eventually partnered with Procter & Gamble and introduced Safeguard soap, which was specifically designed to clean up easily and smell really great. Suddenly, hand-washing became a more enjoyable experience in itself. And that immediate sensory signal, the pleasant smell, the nice lather made it satisfying right then, and hand-washing rates, along with child health, improved significantly.
Yeah, it's a fantastic example. You can also use visible rewards to make progress satisfying, like maybe you open a specific savings account and label it Dream Vacation or New Leather Jacket. Then, every time you skip an unnecessary purchase or decide to eat at home instead of out, you immediately transfer the money you saved into that account. Seeing that balance grow provides an immediate, tangible reward that reinforces the habit. But crucially, make sure the short-term reward reinforces your desired identity, like getting a massage as a reward for exercising regularly, rather than rewarding yourself with a big bowl of ice cream, which kind of undermines the health goal.
Right, the reward shouldn't contradict the habit. And this is where habit tracking comes in too. It's so simple, but incredibly powerful. Just get a calendar and make a big X on it every day you complete your target habit. It works for several reasons. First, it creates a visual cue that reminds you to act. Second, it's inherently motivating because you see the streak building and you don't want to break the chain. And third, it feels incredibly satisfying to record your success, providing visual proof of your progress and reinforcing that identity change we talked about. I know I've personally found the never miss twice rule to be a real game changer here. If you miss one day, fine, it happens, but make sure you get right back on track the next day. It's not about being perfect, it's about consistency. Just showing up, even if it's only for 5 minutes sometimes, reaffirms your identity. Think of them like non-scale victories when you're trying to lose weight, small proofs of progress.
Definitely. And finally, on the flip side, to make bad habits unsatisfying, you can use an accountability partner or a habit contract. The author mentions Roger Fisher, a Harvard negotiation expert who had this provocative idea during the Cold War. Implant the nuclear launch codes inside a capsule right next to the heart of a volunteer aide. If the president ever wanted to launch the nukes, they would first have to personally take a large butcher knife and kill that one specific human being. Fisher's point was that immediate, visceral, painful consequences are incredibly effective teachers. On a less extreme level, he mentions Brian Harris, an entrepreneur who created a strict habit contract for his diet and fitness goals, signed by himself, his wife, and his personal trainer. It included financial penalties and even embarrassing dress code requirements if he failed to meet his goals.
Wow, that's certainly taking it to the next level. But it really highlights how knowing that someone else is watching you, that there's an immediate social cost to inaction, can be a powerful motivator. You just don't want to be seen as untrustworthy or lazy by people you respect. You can even automate this sometimes, like Thomas Frank, another productivity expert, who apparently had his assistant reset his social media passwords every Monday morning, making it physically impossible for him to access those distracting sites during his prime work week. That's external accountability built right into the system.
Exactly. So these 4 laws make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. They really provide this comprehensive framework for understanding why we do what we do, and more importantly, how to build better habits, step by tiny step. By consistently applying these principles, you really can profoundly reshape your life and move from just wanting to change to actually becoming the person you wish to be.
So what does this all boil down to for you, our listener? We've explored how these small, consistent actions, when you make them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, can fundamentally reshape your life and help you fulfill your potential. The key takeaway, at least for me, is something the author says towards the end. The only way to become excellent is to be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over. You have to fall in love with boredom. It's really about consistently showing up day after day, especially when the mood isn't right. Because as he says, professionals stick to the schedule, while amateurs let life get in the way.
Yeah, we've covered a lot today about the science behind habits and how these tiny changes really can lead to remarkable results over time. From the author James Clear's incredible personal journey of recovery and transformation to the aggregation of marginal gains strategy used by British Cycling. We truly hope these insights give you some practical tools and ideas for building better systems in your own life.
Absolutely. And we'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts on this deep dive. What resonated most with you? Was there a particular law or strategy that clicked? Maybe what's one small habit you're thinking about starting, or maybe tweaking using one of these 4 laws? Let us know, share your insights with us in the comments or wherever you engage with us. And if you found this deep dive valuable, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or colleague who might also benefit from these powerful insights on building better habits. Until next time, keep diving deep.